Hi, I'm Bear.
Hi, I'm Lou, and we're
House of BLU.
We still haven't got that.
It'll get there in like 10 years. We'll make it. Slow and steady.
Welcome to episode 2 of Blue Review. Today we are talking about Umbrella Academy Season 2. So if you haven't seen that, spoiler warning, we're going to be talking a lot about that, as is the point of the episode. So if you haven't, go watch it, come back. It's honestly an awesome TV series, so highly recommend.
Yes.
So without further ado,
let's just jump into it. Let's start with where we left off. We left off season 1. The apocalypse happened. It was because of Vanya. Vanya's violin playing shot the moon, and then the moon just exploded and imploded the earth, and they managed to all use 5's power to time travel. They all ended up in the 60s, but they all ended up in this one alleyway several years apart. So I think the first one's 1960, and then 5 lands in 1963. So over the course of 3 years, they all arrive at different times. They all grow and have their own different lives. Klaus starts a cult. Allison gets married.
big Klaus and Allison energy.
Vanya moves to a farm, gets hit by a car, big Vanya energy, being all vague and shit, that's fine. Luther cries on the alleyway street for a couple of months.
Big Luther energy.
Big Luther energy. One of my favourite memes so far is season 1, Luther. Dad sent me to the moon! Season 2, Diego. JFK! President assassination. I will stop it with my hero complex. So Diego, being big Diego energy, gets locked up in a mental asylum.
Yeah.
And we first see him, 5 comes back and he's trying to find them all, and he sees Diego. And then I saw this post where it was just in season 1 we see Diego is scared of needles because Allison needs blood, and he tries to give blood and he faints because of the needle. And so then when we first meet Diego in the mental hospital, 5 provokes him, and they go to give him a needle, and he's like, no, not the needle.
Ow.
And I was just like,
ow!
So I just love the consistency between season 1 and 2. The other thing with Diego's character is his whole stutter coming back with fucking Reginald. Reginald! You're wrong. I was just
How many times have you rewatched it?
I've seen this now 7, 8 times. I lost track. The biggest thing for me for season 2, because I loved season 1, I obsessively watched that too. I've saw it 20 times. And in the week leading up to season 2, I think I saw it 4 times. Every time Lou got home, it was on a different episode. I'm just a very big
Meanwhile, I'm I think I remember this part.
Soundtrack.
Slaps.
It was amazing. I've added it to my Spotify playlist. I've downloaded it. I've listened to it hundreds of times as well. Basically, the whole premise of season 2 is trying to get them back to 2019 without the apocalypse, because they've brought the apocalypse back. Vanya is the cause of the apocalypse.
But in a slightly different way.
In a slightly different way. Phoenix and Wizards on Tumblr found that the TSAR bomber is a Soviet hydrogen bomb codenamed Vanya, which is the most powerful nuclear weapon ever created. It was tested on 30th of October 1961 as an experimental verification of calculation principles and multi-stage thermonuclear weapon designs, and it also remains the most powerful human-made explosive detonated explosion ever. So when 5 says that Vanya will always be the bomb, this person was just he's referencing Vanya. So in future seasons, we're probably going to see Vanya bring on the apocalypse in all these different wonderful ways.
Excellent.
Allison running into the pool, no regard, just in her dress, and Klaus just Allison! And then Diego and Vanya have such a rocky relationship in season 1, and one of the ending scenes of season 2 is her leaning on his shoulder, and I get really emotional. I'm really invested. In season 1, I hated Luther. I hated just his whole whiny
Dad
behavior.
sent me to the moon.
Dad sent me to
That
the moon.
was the Fire Nation killed my mother in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And he just kept going on, and I was just like, we get it, Luther. Like, understand, but let's move on with our lives now.
It was good though because season 2 was different enough from season 1 that it was still interesting, but it also had all these links back. So it had, like you said, like the stutter. It expanded on concepts from the first one. So Ben being a ghost, it expanded more on what he could do, and we actually got to see, you know, Ben could possess Klaus and that kind of stuff. It expanded on the actual abilities, so you knew more explicitly what the abilities were, because like season 1 I was like, oh, Diego's just like real good with knives and shit, and then season 2 he stops like a tirade of bullets, and I was like, oh, he controls metal, gotcha, right, that makes sense. You got a lot more backstory into the commission as well, a lot more happening there in like their history and the lore in regards to how the commission started. And then because the whole premise of season 1 is 47 women or something, or 37? 43 women around the world give birth. And old mate Hargraves only gets 7 of them. But who's to say that the other 36? 37. 36! I was right the first time! Trust your instincts! But yeah, it's like, who's to say the other 36 didn't also have abilities? And so we meet another character, Lila,
who's also a bean.
She can step on me.
Yes, anytime.
Lila, who also has an ability, and it's almost like she absorbs other people's abilities and then can project them back on people. That seems to be her ability.
Yeah.
And then you've also got like Vanya's ability is able to be transferred into people. So when she saves Harlan, he gets some of her ability, but then she can also take it back out, but then she doesn't take all of it out. But yeah, there's just so much going on, and I was like...
Every episode, we ended up with lizard people.
Yeah.
We ended up...
aliens.
5 and 5, and I found this meme of Luther with like 2 leashes, with like old 5, other 5, and it's just like...
It was good as well because... So not only did it have all those links to season 1, and the continuity and the deepening of the lore, but it also brought in new social issues, and it sort of put them in a time period where you can be super, super blatant with it, because 60s America, you've got Allison, who obviously being a person of colour, finds the community because good old segregation.
That scene...
She almost gets... Doesn't she get chased by people?
Yeah, in the first episode, that scene broke my heart when she first arrived. She can't speak, so she can't explain herself, for one thing. And she's like mute, and she's scared, and she doesn't know where her siblings are, or if they're even alive. And she walks into the first restaurant she finds, and everyone's just up in arms and mad at her and pointing at the white only sign. And I was just like... She leaves, so confused, she leaves, and then she gets chased by a group of men. And I...
But it was good, and the same with Vanya and her woman that she
Sissy?
Sissy. Vanya and Sissy as well, exploring gay rights in the 1960s, and, you know, the way it's all perceived then, and...
Klaus and Dave.
Don't. Klaus and Dave is another one, because you see Sissy, who sort of comes to terms with the fact that she loves Vanya, but goes, ultimately I have to do what's correct for my son. But then you have Dave, who's clearly...
Internalized homophobia.
That's what I was after, yeah. So you kind of get both sides of it, and it's just done so well. And I think it's something that unfortunately still needs to be talked about. Still needs to be portrayed in such a way that people are like, oh yeah, it's bad because...
Well, it's been 60 years since the 60s.
Ew.
I know, it's been 60 years, and we're still seeing, at least in Australia, we're seeing TikToks of videos of what's going on in America, and or like the protests and the violence and everything, and it's mirrored image to what we're seeing.
And it's like, how have 60 years passed and there's still this absolute rubbish going on?
Yeah. It's a whole thing.
So I think, yeah, incredibly important that they get those perspectives across and remind people of like, this was happening 60 years ago and you can still see similarities in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Something's wrong here. Which I think is fantastic. I think it's definitely something that's needed right now.
And it wasn't done in a way that's like out of place or character, because like in season 1 we fall in love with Dave and Klaus and their relationship, but we're still going back in time, so it's not out of character for Dave to be acting that way because he's young, he's never met Klaus, and I can imagine...
And it's him pre-war.
Yeah, so I can imagine him being in the war is a very sobering experience. You get the whole mortality life check and being like, well, if dying is a possibility, then I want to be living my authentic self and my authentic life. So there was just so many heartbreaking moments, like when he punched Klaus in the face, and when Ben possessed Klaus and met Diego, and...
Ow, I forgot about that!
And I saw another meme, because, yeah, I have scrolled through this tag so many times, of someone said, when Diego really cares about someone, he cups that person's face. So with Lila, with Fanya, and then with Klaus as Ben as Klaus, he was just like, I've missed you so much. And that's how he shows affection, because that's the way the mum would have done it. I was like, what's her name? Can't think of it. But yeah, the scene at the end where Fanya gets in the car to go to Sissy's and she's like, can you come with me? And just the progression of every moment in season 1 when Vanya wants like family time, and she's just like, I want to be included, I want to be included. And finally in season 2 she stepped up and being like, I'm going to state my needs. My needs are this. As a family, can you please support me with this? I don't want to ask for much, I don't want to burden you, only come if you want to come. And they're all just like, we've got more important things. Diego's like, the president! You know, because that's his moon obsession. But they all get in the car, and Luther's the last one to get in the car, and you just see it sink, and it's comedic, but it's also just like, squad. They got there, and then...
A lot of full circle moments and a lot of like character development. Particularly because Vanya goes through the whole amnesia plot, which normally, like, we hate. We despise amnesia plots. But she just forgot who she, like, what her past events were. She forgot memory. She didn't forget who she was. And so she still had that personal growth that she'd had in season 1. She had that as, like, her base character level for season 2. And then as she got her memories back, she just continued to grow. And all the characters grew in really different ways. Like, even... I know you said Luther annoys you in season 1, Luther and Allison in season 1, I was always just like, oh. And in season 2, I think they both had such humbling experiences that it really warmed me to them as characters. Like, by the 100%. End of it, there wasn't a single character where I was like, ugh. And just the acting. As an actor, the acting was on point. Aidan Gallagher, who plays 5, is 17.
16, turned 17 in September. He's born 2003.
Disgusting. He's so unbelievably talented for someone so young. Because to play a crazy character, normally when people play crazy, and I say this to my students all the time, normally when people play crazy, they're like, oh, I'm playing a crazy character. Ha ha ha, I can be maniacal. But what is always the sort of most unsettling thing about crazy characters is their humanity. Is the fact that they're so human. And you really believed him as a character, despite the fact that, like, from an actor's perspective, being given a script and it being like, you're like 60-year-old man stuck in a 15-year-old boy's body and you have superpowers and you've lived through the apocalypse and you've killed all these people. Trying to justify that and trying to emotionally connect to that would just be like... And then not only having to be like, oh, well, I think this would be his reaction, but having to go, as a 17-year-old, what would be a 60-year-old man's reaction to this? Like, the level and the layers that he has to go through for that character and the way that he portrays it with such maturity, yet such childishness as well. It's
the perfect balance, and it's all in mannerisms as well. He could be saying nothing, and
you still see
receive him as a 6-year-old in an 11-year-old body. My favourite scene is when 5 takes the hammer and goes in and massacres the commission committee. That was just, it was like an upbeat song. It was just done so well. He had the whole fight with the candy machine. Also, we have to talk about the ending, obviously. Sparrow Academy. I've seen a lot of fan theories on how we saw Harlan playing with a sparrow at the end of the card. So Reginald Hargreaves,
what a lad,
saw this kid. I'm over him. He saw the cluster fluff that the Umbrella Academy was, and he went out of his way to choose new kids because he was just like, well, they're gonna fail.
But Ben was still there. Oh, because he didn't see Ben.
He didn't see Ben because Ben was a ghost. So he still chose Tentacle Ben.
Yeah, I mean, valid. That's a badass power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so because all the spoilers, because in the end Ben, he moves on and sort of has this moment where he was like, I was too scared to move on, and you know, I pretended I was mad that Klaus, that was probably my favourite scene, actually, seeing the flashback to him and Klaus when Klaus first summons him. I would say that's my favourite scene, just because they're my beans. But then the scene where he helps Vanya and saves Vanya and that ultimately kills him, I was like, no, we're not going to get any more Ben, but I need another season. And then psych, head of the Sparrow Academy, #1 of the Sparrow Academy is Ben, and I was like, my boy is back!
Universal!
So yeah, it left it open, like, 'cause there are so many questions, like, you know, you see Reginald Hargreaves unzip his skin suit and he was a lizard person, alien thing, and I was like, what? I mean, it makes sense because we'd been sitting there going, in the season 1 you see the flashback and it looks like it's the 1800s or something. But then he's about the same age when he's raising them in 2018, and I'm like, and then you see him in the 60s and he looks like the same age, and I'm just like, how? And then he unzipped the skin suit and I was like, well, that's one way.
Yeah.
There's still so many questions because you're like, why is there a lizard person on Earth? What?
Are there others?
Yeah, exactly.
What
like
about the lady? Is she a lizard person? She doesn't die. She was shot in the head.
Yeah, like there's so many questions left unanswered. And then the whole Sparrow Academy thing leaves it open for another season, but you're not like, oh, sequel baiting. You're just like, yes, give me more.
Give me content.
I require the answers to all my questions.
And is there anything you didn't like?
Got maybe a bit repetitive.
Yeah.
Like, yes, a lot happened in every episode, but the storylines were slow.
Yeah. I think one thing I didn't like was JFK repeating, as I've repeated it now in this video, like 50 million times. Like, I know that Diego, like, hyperfixates on things, but, like, bro, Luther didn't cry about the moon that much.
Yeah, like, Luther kind of lost his whole life that he'd set up and was just like, she'll be right.
Yeah.
Which I think is good for him, because normally he would be like, I lost my job for this. But yes, if you can't tell, we thoroughly enjoyed it. Lots of great character moments, lots of just great plot points, lots of full circle moments, links to season 1, deepening of the lore and the history of it all, and furthering the plot to the point where it makes sense to have more. It doesn't feel like sequel baiting. It doesn't feel like, you know, flogging that dead horse. It's all so relevant. So yeah, definitely recommend watching Umbrella Academy if you haven't already. Season 1 and season 2 are both on Netflix. Highly, 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 highly recommend.
They're only 10 episodes each, so
bingeable
in a whole day. You can do it. I believe in you. I've done it.
Well, in that case, I've been Lou.
I've been Bear.
Blue out.
And then I found a meme that was just like, we've seen Allison say she can speak 7 languages. Vanya's like spoken Russian. We know 5 can speak multiple languages. But when Luther and Diego see Olga, like they're saying on the floor, they're just like, it's a name! We must track down this woman who's 80 years old, and his clearly most logical explanation was that she has killed.
But they are Dumb and Dumber, so...
Yeah. Imagine you're living in the 60s, it's a normal day, you see the hairiest, most giant man you've ever seen, and then an 11-year-old boy be like, I'm the daddy here. You'd just be a little bit confused. Just a tiny bit. Just be like, what is that?